It is Friday, December 4th, 2020. I'm Pastor Thor Ramsey with Center Church. This is Gospel for Five, where we take 5 minutes out of our day and focus on the gospel and the one who saved our souls, because Jesus is the gospel. Now, yesterday we ended with this really powerful verse in Galatians 3:28 that I think really speaks to the times we're living in. This is why my argument as a pastor is, whatever your viewpoint, or you may not even know about critical race theory, and even if critical race theory gets some things right, which it can be argued it does in terms of the history of racism and the systemic racism we find in American culture in many places, even if critical race theory gets some of those things right, we do not need critical race theory to understand those things, to even see those things. I mean, Christians throughout the ages, and even though there were many Christians throughout the ages who got this wrong, we can still go back and see many got it right all throughout the ages, because the Christian gospel does not change. This is the big argument. If you go back to William Wilberforce and the emancipation of slaves in the United Kingdom came about through Christian witness, Christian belief in this particular view of humanity, that we're not primarily identified by our race or our ethnicity or our sexuality, though we don't deny any of those things, but as Christians, our identity comes from being united to Jesus Christ. And now we can find other passages where we would say the common bond of humanity is being created in the image of God. That's why we can relate to one another as human beings, the black person to the white person, to the Indian person, to the Hispanic person, and so on and so forth, to the Chinese person, to the Japanese person. These different races can find a common humanity because there is a common humanity. We are created in the image of God. Male and female can find common ground because we're created in the image of God, both male and female. Now, the problem, at least from my perspective, with so much of the racial tension today is that we've gotten away from, well, if you go back to Martin Luther King Jr., which I bring up often, because today's racial, it's almost like we're practicing racial profiling, many people in our culture. Martin Luther King Jr. said, don't judge anyone on the basis of the color of their skin. And now, if our primary identity is the color of our skin, is our race, then we can't help judging others based upon the color of their skin. It's going to bring more racial tension, and I believe it has. That's not to say there isn't true racism, but again, I think it can be proven through... Okay, here's the thing. Haven't great strides been made in how people view other races in our country since the civil rights movement of the 1960s? I think can be definitely argued, yes, great progress has been made. Could more progress be made? Absolutely. More progress can also be made. But let's find the redemptive aspect of it, because in the view of identity politics, there is no redemption. If you go back to the viewpoint that which is where critical race theory, I believe, goes horribly wrong. And again, I don't believe we need critical race theory as Christians to analyze culture correctly. We actually have a better analysis of culture. Why? Because it's revealed from God, number one. And number two, it offers redemption and hope. Like, if all white people are racists because they're white and they've been the oppressors, tell me about redemption. Where's the redemption in that point of view? There is none. You know, the white person is locked hopelessly in their whiteness. That's the whole idea in critical race theory. There is no redemption. All you can do is, I've got to shut up and listen Now, listening's good, but if that's the idea that all white people are racist, which, again, I claim is a false idea, because I'm a white person. I'm not a racist. You can charge me with racism for being white, but it's a false claim. And I will stand up and say, I'm not a racist. I'm not a bigot. Matter of fact, you can't go back through my life and prove racism or bigotry from my life. Show me from my actions that your charges are true, and I will fall under the weight of the evidence. But the evidence is just not there. Why? Because it's not true. Now, I would just encourage you, if that's who you are, don't be afraid to stand up and say that. Because many people now are charged with racism when it's just not true. And so many people are afraid to speak now and to say anything because they'll be charged with what? Being a bigot or being a racist. I'm just standing up now and saying, you know what? It's not true. My identity is in Christ. And when we find our identity in Christ, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. The oneness, the possibility of relationship and redemption come from being in Christ. That's not to say these other things don't exist, right? It's not to say there's no such thing as Greeks or Jews. It's not to say there's no such thing as ethnicities or men or women. But we find our unity, our commonality in Christ. That leads to fruitful, fuller, flourishing relationships. Now, what has God said to you